might have. So today, we want to talk a little bit about a new feature that's going to be introduced into Stratum. It's a feature of your Stratum viewer, and it'll be part of release what's going to probably be called 7.1.1. So if you've already upgraded to 7.1, that's no worries. It just fits right underneath the current 7.1 deployment. If you haven't upgraded to 7.1 yet, I'd highly recommend you do that. And then ultimately the dashboards will be a component of that upgrade. So that's one thing. And then I think the second, before we get into actually looking at stuff, is to hear a little bit about why and what was why we built this, and what was the objective of adding a simpler dashboard solution to Stratum. And part of that was our objective was to provide a simple way to allow you guys to take advantage of 2 or 3 key things that you have in Stratum. One is the information that you've captured in the Stratum repository or hub, and we want to give you as many ways as possible to leverage that information. And currently you use Stratum online. You might use our broadcast server to push stuff out. You might use that information in Excel. You might use it in you might push it up via the gateway to Power BI. We want to provide a lot of different ways for you to do that. So here's a way where you can take that information and present it in more of a dashboard kind of a format than standard when you're in Stratum and say one view at a time. And the other things we want you to be able to get more value out of is really 2 things. Some of the views you've already created in Stratum. So can you make those more readily accessible to a broader audience, or if not a broader audience, maybe make them a little easier to use for people and get them right in front of people when they get started. And then 2, your skills you've developed in Stratum. So your skills at developing views as you think about more and more about what you would like to see on a dashboard, give you an easy way to create views and then put multiple views together to give a broader picture of what's going on in your business in a particular area, or maybe overall in a general sense, so you can do those kinds of things. And, if you look at what we've been doing with Stratum on the back end, we've also made it simpler for you to get new types of information into Stratum. So we certainly want you to load up the Stratum Data Hub with all the information that you would like to have, and we've added our new data import feature, the Stratum Link feature, all of which are features that allow you to get new information into Stratum much more easily and not have to rely necessarily on, say, your IT groups to do that. So those are some of the reasons behind what we were doing here. We also have had an ask from the customer base about how can I more easily get different kinds of views. And I know if you've worked with our services team, some of them have created custom HTML to show you stuff, maybe use some of our dashboarding features that we embedded into SharePoint. So there was different ways to do that, but what we wanted to do was make a simple and easy way, a simpler and easier way to do that stuff. So that's what we're going to see today. Now, a lot of what we're going to see today is some of the feature function is actually certainly within the views is feature function that's existed in Stratum for a long time. It might be stuff you're not taking advantage of necessarily, but it's out there. And then we're going to see the new dashboard features. So let me just kind of go into the new dashboarding. You can see here I'm in Stratum. Actually, here I'm in what you guys might have as your base Stratum setup. I've got my recent and favorites window. It came up, and I can get rid of that. And then I have just our standard home page with some stuff about it. And there we are today, seeing our new Stratum Dashboard classes listed right here on this page. So this is just a standard home page, and maybe ultimately, as we get through today's example, I want to replace this home page with a dashboard, and I'll show you how to do that. But I'm just going to go down here. I've got these are just my standard view groups. I probably have more of these than a lot of folks do, just because I've got a million things here, all the different things you can get from Stratum. But I'm going to go down here and open up our dashboard admin, and that's going to actually just show me a palette that I can start working from. Here's an example of a dashboard just to give you an idea of kind of how these things work. Each one of the things displayed here, so this Outlook, the current month scorecard, as well as these distributor sales down here. These are all views from Stratum. So these are all different views that I have in Stratum that have, some of them have obviously charts, some are grids, if you will, standard grids, and you can put those, this one's showing 3 different views all on a sample page here. So I thought what I would do is kind of take you through from ground zero, creating one of these from scratch, and you can see how that works and how you can include your views, et cetera. So with that in mind, let me just create a new dashboard. So I'm just going to go up here and, amazingly enough, click the plus sign to add a new one. This is going to be, I'll call just maybe, I'll call this my insight example number 3. I think I don't have, anyways, doesn't matter. I'll create that. So now I've got a blank palette that I can begin to edit. So I'm going to edit that, and you'll see right away that this just opened something on the right here called my Stratum Views. And the question would be, where did that come from? Well, if you look at that, and I take that list, which starts with favorites, et cetera, and I actually look at what I'm doing over here. So let me just go into here. I'm going to open this and go like this. Whoops, sorry. And I'm just going to real quick show you that my view groups in Stratum, if I scroll to the top here, these actually, this list here matches this list here. And if I open these, amazingly enough, I'll have all of the same views listed here. So what this allows me to do in the dashboard is it's recognized who I am, and it allows me to go ahead and bring in any view that I have in Stratum onto the dashboard and use it as part of my dashboard. So I'll create a dashboard pretty similar to that one I was showing, just to kind of show you how that happens. So my first view, I had an Outlook view, and I believe I've got that down here. I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm just going to drag that Outlook and put it up over here. So that basically brought that view in, and then I can size this thing. I can make it bigger or smaller, whatever I want to do. And I just dragged that view in, and it's here on the dashboard. Now, a couple of things when I have a view here. I probably, for the sake of the dashboard, don't want all this menu stuff up at the top. I just want that to show me my outlook. This is actually showing me my forecast. It's showing me my actual sales layered on top of that. So anywhere the reddish color pops out, I didn't meet my forecast for prior months. Like I always say when I'm in my demo, it's always September, by the way, so we're partway through the year. And then the blue is my sales, and the outlook is anything I have coming up in the future, and I can see where that is. So that's what this is showing me. But, what I kind of want to do here is get rid of all this menu stuff. So I can just go to settings for one of these widgets, and the settings here allow me to change the title. I'm going to stick with Outlook, but you could change that to whatever you want. And then this is essentially a set of view properties. And for any of you that have used hyperlinks with our views or things like that, you'll recognize these things. But what these do is let you turn off and on different things in Stratum. And I'm going to just turn everything off. So I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to hide everything. So I'm just going through, pretty straightforward, and I'm just going to save that. I'll come back around to this drill through URL and talk about that in a minute. But so now when I create that, I can see that's about where I need to be for that. So that gets me that view on my dashboard, and it's kind of how I want it, and I'll leave it there for now. I think another thing I had on that other menu, I'm pretty sure I had my current month scorecard is the grid, so I'll drop that up here. Now this one, I think I'm going to leave the options up at the top, because when you put a grid view like this, maybe I want to use this as a grid, and just like you do a regular view in Stratum. So all of the feature function that I have, I can drill on this, if I'll drill down, and that'll drill down and it'll do all that. So when you put something up in the dashboard, when you put a view up in the dashboard, it's still operational. All the things you can do in views, it does that stuff. And let's see, the other thing, I had distributor sales, so I'll close this up and go down to my distributor group. Let's see, down here I've got my distributor sales. I'll drag that on here. So again, I can put that over here. and I'll fit that in here. And let's see, that thing has 2 graphs in it, so I'm going to kind of make this long enough to show both those for now. Anyways, that's kind of, I've got that in there. And again, this one I probably want to hide everything like I showed before. So, straightforward, you guys. This, it's pretty straightforward. You can change these. And that'll get that shown up on a dashboard. So that's all there is to it. Now I have a dashboard, shows me those 3 things, and I can do a couple other things on this dashboard. But let's talk about some of the basics here just to get started. So some of the features, these things, these are all, in this particular view, it's drillable, the distributor sales. I can go down to the product family, for example. Over here, I mentioned this is a regular grid view. So now I can drill on the division, for example, and I can go down another level. That took me to there. I can go back. You guys know how to use a view. A couple other features, though, that might become useful here in a view itself. For example, when I'm in this view, I actually added a hyperlink. So I'm in my dashboard. The revenue trend tells me I'm down. I click on this, and that takes me to another view and explodes all of the detail from this year versus last year by week. And of course, this is just a regular view. It's just another view. And now it shows me for that week how I'm doing by product brand. So that's just, and that, by the way, that ability to link out to another view, that's just using a hyperlink. That's a standard view feature in Stratum that all of you have today. But I think, thinking about this in a dashboard environment where you're looking at stuff at a high level, and then maybe you want to click on something to get more detail, we've provided a number of ways for you to get to more detail. That's one way. That's standard view stuff in a grid. Another thing that you might want to do is add a drill down to the Outlook. So this Outlook is showing me at a high level kind of what I got here. And as I mentioned with my forecast and my Outlook and my sales. But maybe I want some more detail on that. So you can do a couple things here. One, I can go back to settings. And I can actually add what's called a drill through URL. Now, to add a drill through URL, that can be a view in Stratum. It could be another website you want to go to, some other information that you might have. So I'm going to go into my daily demo, my demo up here, and I'm actually going to, there's a particular view that shows me the detail behind that Outlook stuff. There it is right there. It's called Outlook Forecast and Performance. You can see that there. And I'm going to go down here, and I'm actually going to get the URL for that. So I'm just going to copy this URL, and I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and I'm actually in that drill down URL for this Outlook. I'm going to insert that there. And I do this. One of the things I like to do, again, these are just a bunch of parameters here. I'm going to turn this to true but you can decide how you want this to display. But now you'll see there's a drill through button here. So now this has popped up, and if I click on this, that'll open a new view for that particular view, and now it shows me all of the detail that was behind creating this chart and lets me see detail. And of course, I can drill down on this. This will show me different details about this. So I can come back and I can go back to the month level. I can do things like that. So now, point being, in my dashboard, not only do I have the ability to link out to stuff that I talked about before, I can link from these things using a drill down view. So you have a lot of options on how that works. So let's say this is kind of what I want for now. And I've got a dashboard. Now I want to do a couple of things with this dashboard. Maybe I want to make this dashboard my home page in Stratum. So you can pretty easily do that. I'm going to go down to my dashboard here, and I'm going to go ahead and say open it in another tab. And the reason I'm going to do that is I want to just see what the URL is. So that opened the dashboard in another tab, amazingly enough. But I'm just going to copy that URL. And for those of you that have never done this before with regards to Stratum, I'm just really going to show you how you can go into Stratum and set up anything to be an alternate home page to the standard home page that we use. So here I'm back in Stratum. Let me go to my home page, and this is the standard home page. If you just install Stratum and you haven't overrode this, you can go ahead and do this. And you can have a different home page by user group, or for your Stratum application in total. So if I go down to my admin utilities and open up a couple of different things here, I'll show you. In admin utilities, if I wanted to, say, set up that dashboard for a new user, I could create the new user. You guys, most of you have probably done some of this before, but I could add it to the override homepage here, and I could just add that URL right here, and now when that user signs in, he'd see that. The other thing I'll do is, at the application level, I can say, okay, when everybody comes into Stratum, I want to override their homepage. I can go up here to the global homepage. I'm just going to paste that what I had. I'm going to save it. And now when I go to my homepage, that will actually display that. So when I come into Stratum, this is basically what I would see, and I can get rid of this if I want. I don't have to have the recents and favorites come up. That is a user configurable feature, whether that comes up immediately or stays in the background. But now I have that dashboard that we were just talking about, so I can see that. And then when I first go into Stratum, this will be the first thing I see when I come in, and I can run my traditional views the same way I would, anything else. So I can run a view here, just like I always could, or I can go to my home page, and that's going to show me the dashboard. So that's how I can make it my home page. Another thing you might want to do is make that dashboard an option out of a view group in Stratum. So, as one of my views, if you will, or one of the things that a user can click on, I might want to be able to see that. So what I'm going to do is, again, go down to the my admin utilities, and I'm going to add what's called a user link. Some of you may have used these, some of you may not have, but this is basically allows you in Stratum to create, I think we've done this before, and this is a link to my example dashboard. And then I want to make this available to everyone, so I'm going to call it global. Here's that URL. I'm just going to paste that URL I had from the dashboard, and then I can decide, should it open up a new window or should it display right inside of Stratum? I'll have it display right inside of Stratum. I'm going to add this to my dashboard group, so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now I'll just, if I come into Stratum, and that was probably a bad example right there. Let's run a view here. Let's just have a basic view up here. And now if I was in Stratum and I came down to my dashboard view group, I'd see in here, here's my insight example. I run that, and up comes my dashboard. So I could have multiple dashboards here. If you had multiple dashboards, you want someone to be able to cycle through maybe your daily dashboard, your purchasing dashboard, specific sales dashboard. You could have all of those as links just defined right here in Stratum. So again, just different ways to leverage the work we did right here. Now, that's a general overview of the dashboards. I think one thing I didn't show was this ability to pop out. So if I want to take this view and see it, say this distributor sales view, and see it all alone, I can do that. That just ran that view in Stratum. So it has all of that, the entire view displayed here, just like I ran it as a standard view, so I can dig into more detail, maybe in a bigger window space than what I have available in the dashboard there, because I wanted to get multiple things. So, I can drill down, I can do all the things. So that's what that this arrow here is a pop out. This arrow is a drill down, and obviously this is the settings. And when I stop editing, then I'll just have, I won't take up the space on the right, et cetera. So the question that comes up, and that we do here, along with what we're doing in these dashboards, I obviously have a bunch of nice charts that I've created. And, how do I create a view that has a chart? I now know how to create a dashboard. I can put stuff on the dashboard. It's pretty straightforward. You just drag and drop stuff on there. I can size the windows. I can do all that stuff. I can add it to Stratum via user link or make it a home page. But I need to create a view that has a chart in it. So I just thought, as part of what I'd show today, I'd do that real quick. I'm going to come in here, and if you're using the base views from Stratum, it's pretty easy to go in and say, if you wanted to use something like a sales analysis report, where I say the view I want, the chart I want to create is sales. Throughout the year. So I want to by month, I want to see what my sales are. They're going up and down versus a budget or something like that. But here's a view that already has, 50, 60% of that work done with regards to having it already defined. But Let me start from scratch in case you're not using the views that we supply in Stratum. I'll just go up and let's see, in my favorites, I'll go ahead. I'm going to create a, I'm in the wrong version. Let me go over here, and I'm just going to create a new view. So all I did was right-click, and I'm going to create a view from scratch real quick. This will not be that painful, I promise. So what do I want in the rows? So, I'm just going to say, hey, in the rows, I'm just going to have, it's a pretty high-level view, so I'm just going to have maybe my company in the rows. And let's say that my view is going to be my food service division sales by month. I'm going to go ahead and let's see. I'll just do this for the total company in the rows. So I'll add that. So that's okay. Across the columns, I actually want my months. So one of the things you have to do in Stratum, you have to tell us if you want to use time ranges where you specify from and to time, or do you want to use not use time ranges and use time, say, in a trended manner. So I'm going to say no to time ranges. And that'll allow me now in my columns to be able to say, hey, let me find something by year. I'm going to go down. I'm going to pick my year-based months. This is the one I typically use. You can pick any one you want here, months, weeks, whatever it might be. Maybe you want to use absolutes. I like to use year-based, months-based, because this way it's using relative time. I'm going to pick ultimately the current year here. So it'll always, this view will always change as we flip over the years. But I'm going to put that in here. And then I said, from a measure standpoint, I'm going to add a couple of measures here. I wanted my sales amount. So I'm going to add that, just add my actual sales, and I'm going to actually, I'm going to go ahead and add another measure here. And I wanted to add my budget amount. So budget, I wanted to add this compared to my budget. So I'm going to go ahead and add my budget. I've got a frozen budget amount. So this is the budget we created at the beginning of the year, and I want to compare to that. So I'm going to say OK. I also want to, for the sake of building a graph, you'll find often it's best to put your measures often on the rows. It makes it a little simpler. So I'm going to put those on the rows. I can move those around, and I'm just going to say OK. Up, and what I did, I mentioned that I wanted to have a filter by division, so because I might want to only do this for one division. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick my division, and add that to my my view filter there. Let's see. The other thing, I want to clean this view up a little bit, so I want to get rid of some of this stuff. Hopefully you guys know how to do this. But I'm going to come into the company, and I'm going to say, instead of showing me the company value, I'm just going to have the long description, and I'm going to hide that. Same with the years. I'm going to come into the years, and I'm going to say, just show me the absolute year value, and I'll hide that so I don't want it to display twice. And same with the months. I want the absolute months. I'm going to hide that stuff. So there you go. That'll clean that view up a little bit, give me a nice, simple, crisp view that shows me actuals and budgets. And then how do I add a graph? Pretty straightforward. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to click on that. I want this to be a column. I'm going to compare budget to some columns by months. And I'm just going to finish. And that is going to show me a graph that's got columns comparing budget to actuals. I kind of don't like these out here. It's got data out here. In the months, I don't have any sales. So I'm going to actually just go to sales amount here, and I'm going to filter on the sales amount. And I'm just going to say not equal to 0. So any months that don't have sales won't show up. So at this level, the divisional level, I'm certainly going to have sales in every month. If I don't, I've got bigger problems than my graph. So there you go. I've got this. For those of you that are familiar with this, I can make this a little longer if I want. I'm just going to make this graph, I don't know, something like this. I'm going to make it a little bigger. That'll just stretch that graph out a little bit. So now the question would be, and I said I was going to do this for the food service division. So let me just filter on that. So that graph is now for the food service division. I'm going to do this. This was my another insight example for food service, right? Make it global, and I'm going to save that in favorite. So that's cool. So now I have this thing. Let's now see how I would add that to my dashboard. So I'm going to come back to my dashboard, and here's my dashboard. I'm going to edit this dashboard. right? My Insight Example 3, because I want to add something new to it. I want to add two things, actually, because one feature I forgot to show you. One was that graph we just created, and two, I want to add something outside of Stratum to the dashboard. So I'm going to add some news, say, for food service and put that in here. So I'm going to go down. I added that thing to my favorites. So if I go over here, my Insight Example should be here. And maybe I want that up here, so I'm going to drop that up here. What that did was, you'll see it just pushed everything there below it so it would fit. And see there, I want to get rid of the grid here as well. I don't really want the grid to display as part of this. So I'm just going to go up to my display options, and I'm going to say don't show the grid, say OK, and then I'm actually going to save that. And now I'm going to save that. And then just like we did before, I'm going to get rid of all that menu stuff. And that'll just clean that up. And there we go. And I might want to make this a little bigger, so I'm going to go like that. Maybe that was a little too big, doesn't matter, but something like that. So, so now I've added that in. I've got that in my dashboard, and you can see now my dashboard has all the other stuff I had, and I've added something new to the dashboard. So when I go into my Stratum demo here, and I go to my home page, it'll now have now I've updated that for everyone in the company that comes in if I've described that as their home page. Additionally, last thing I'll show, and then we'll wrap things up today. If I'm in my dashboard here, and I want to add something outside of Stratum. So let's say, I don't know. I think food service distribution news. I'm going to get this particular website, shows me news that I can have. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that particular URL. If I knew the URL, it would be even simpler. I didn't know that off the top of my head. And down at the bottom of this list of things in the dashboard, there's always this other category. And you can see here, I can add a custom widget. I'm going to add that in here. And the settings for a custom widget are a little different. This is, I give it a title. So this is, I don't know, all the news you can use. And then a URL. I'm just going to take that URL I just copied from food service and say OK. And that puts my food service news into my dashboard here. And that, I can move this up here a little bit. I can make it bigger, do whatever I want, stuff like that. But anyways, that adds some additional news to my dashboard here. So that kind of gets me, I can move this up here. Yeah, there we go. So anyways, now I have a dashboard that has news in it as well. So I've got news, I've got all my graphs, and I can do that kind of stuff. And again, once I stop editing, it will actually add that to the dashboard that's saved. And when I go into Stratum as my home page, that will actually be displayed as well. So, this now when I go to here, if I go home, I'll now have all of what I've described as the dashboard. So that updated those views. My news is in there now. I've got all of that as my dashboard. So that's a pretty cool way to create dashboards and be able to take advantage of information you have in Stratum as well as the views you've already created. So with that was kind of what I wanted to show you today. Again, that's going to become available here very shortly in the next few weeks as part of release 7.1.1. And that will be, so when you request your 7.1 version of Viewer, that will just be included in it. And that'll be something that everyone can